Harry emerged from the court case. We're still waiting for the result to hear whether taxpayers are going to pay for his security as 24-hour armed guard. But he did speak to a newspaper here in the UK outside of court, and it got published at the weekend, where he said a very interesting comment where he believed that he was trapped, or that it was an attempt to trap him by removing his security, to trap him in the royal family. It's been pointed out this is a contradiction, because during the court case there was a statement read out where he said that he felt that he was being forced out of the royal family because they were taking away security and it was an attempt to kick him out. Are you worried about this contradiction, guys, that he can't seem to get his story straight?
Well, I think this is a last chance saloon for Harry, because this is now at the appeal stage, isn't it? So he's either going to be successful or he's not going to be successful. I'm not a legal expert, but it looks like his lawyer is trying everything possible, any possible angle that is going to convince the appeal judges to side with Prince Harry on this particular point. I think what's also a tricky point for this is you look back at Spare and the Sandringham Summit and the arguments that Prince Harry had with Sir Clive Alderton, the King's private secretary, and the late Queen's private secretary, and others. And the fact that the King's private secretary is on the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, RAVEC, which make the decision to downgrade his security with the Home Office, I think grates with Prince Harry, and he has spoken about that in the past, that there's some kind of bias within that committee, which is why his security was downgraded. And
the fact that he thinks the one person who could make a difference to this is his father, the King, who, with a nod, could sweep this issue away. And of course he can't, because he can't be seen to be interfering in the judicial system, and that is why Harry didn't meet up with him, even though they were in the country for a number of hours at the same time as Harry arrived and before the King headed off to Italy. But it is at the crux of that dispute with the royal family.
It's crunch time for Prince Harry. His long-running battle over royal security has reached its breaking point, and there's no cavalry coming from Buckingham Palace. The Duke of Sussex is now standing alone, facing the harsh truth: when you walk away from the firm, you can't expect the perks to follow. This legal saga has been dragging on for years, Harry fighting tooth and nail for the right to retain the same taxpayer-funded protection he once had as a working royal. But the British government isn't budging, and the royal family? They're keeping their distance. The King has made it clear this is not his battle to fight. Observers say this is Harry's last chance saloon. If this latest legal appeal fails, there's nowhere else to go. The message from the Home Office is blunt: you can't pick and choose royal privileges. Harry's California lifestyle might be glamorous, but it doesn't grant him automatic access to British state security. Behind palace walls, there's quiet relief. The monarchy has no interest in reigniting old wounds or getting dragged back into Harry's legal drama. The King's focus is on the institution, not individual grievances. Even William, according to insiders, feels that Harry's demands are unrealistic and out of touch. And yet, Harry continues to frame this as a matter of safety, not status. He argues that threats against him and his family have intensified since Megxit. But many critics believe this is less about protection and more about principle, a refusal to accept that he's no longer part of the royal machine. If the courts side against him once again, the consequences will be symbolic and deeply personal. It will mark the end of Harry's final link to royal privilege. No amount of Netflix money, Hollywood connections, or California sunshine can restore what he willingly gave up. This is the reckoning, the moment Harry must finally face reality. The King won't intervene. The palace won't bend. The British public won't sympathise. The Duke of Sussex has made his choices, and the royal family has moved on. For Harry, the last chance saloon may already be closing its doors.
It's fascinating you bring that up, because also Harry said this matters more than his cases against the media. He said this is the one that matters more than anything. Do you think his father should get involved? I think you touched on it there. I mean, he is his father.
He is his father, but he's the King. And this was a case being taken in His Majesty's court against His Majesty's government. There is absolutely no way that the King could be seen to be intervening in this at all. Even any innocuous comment that could have been interpreted in a way and find its way into evidence in the court by Prince Harry's barrister. And I think that is why the King's advisors are very keen that he should keep his distance at this stage. And it's a massive problem in which, if we're talking about any kind of rapprochement between them, because Harry sees it as a betrayal, that he hasn't been given this security, that others in public life, former Prime Ministers, Liz Truss, for example, get taxpayer-funded protection that he doesn't. He sees Sir Clive Alderton's involvement on Ravec as a serious conflict of interest. And the King can't have conversations with him. And we're learning that the distance between them is perhaps greater than ever.
Well, they've not spoken for months and months and months.
Haven't seen each other since February of last year. And that was that one brief 30-minute meeting after the King's diagnosis. And we're learning through sources close to Harry, who've been speaking to People magazine, which is often their preferred outlet if they want to get a message out there, that Harry only found out about his father's recent visit to hospital through the media, and that he doesn't know what his father's prognosis is.
Yeah, I mean, so we did that in The Sun a couple of weeks ago, that he'd only found out by the media. I mean, this is a ludicrous situation, isn't it? And it can't only be because of this court case. It can't only that's surely not the only reason the King won't answer the phone calls, Cameron.
Well, I think it's a quite a fundamental reason, because I think the King, according to People magazine, the sources speaking to them, close to Harry, the King sees it really as his duty as head of state that he should not get involved with the judicial system. And I think he may well have been advised that he probably shouldn't take his son's calls in case this court case is brought up, in case he's forced to say something to Prince Harry. And we know, because of Spare and all the rest of it, that what the private conversations Harry has with his family members can end up being leaked to the press or published in a book. And I think that is what's making the royal family and those close to them paranoid about talking to Prince Harry, particularly on such a, could be a fundamental constitutional issue such as this.
I think there have been previous missed opportunities as well, but on this occasion, for Harry flying in specifically for his appearance at the Court of Appeal, that would have been very difficult if it had turned out that the King had held a meeting with his son on that occasion, so close to it.
As soon as you've mentioned Spare, Cameron, can we raise this idea that possibly Harry could be plotting a second book or a podcast? And I bring this up because, again, I keep going back to what he was talking about last week at the end of this court case. He said that people would be shocked by what's being held back, because he had heard some private details that we didn't hear in court, but he was allowed to read some documents that haven't been made public. And he says his worst fears have been confirmed by the whole legal disclosure in the case, and it's really sad. He's free to talk about this stuff, possibly. He's free to bring out another book or speak about it on a podcast like Meghan's doing.
Yeah, well, the reason that some of those details were not read out in court was because it was a national part of national, security issues. That's why. But perhaps it was a bit of a veiled threat from Harry. I think there will be people asking the question that if he loses this case, is he going to throw his toys out the pram and publish or speak to a publication about some of that private stuff that we heard in court? And as you say, Matt, he says it would shock people. So that would be in one sense, is that going to be enough material for a book? He also said in the promotional interviews following the publication of Spare, his bombshell autobiography, that he had enough material for a second memoir. So is this going to come to fruition? I think Palace sources, the Palace are going to be slightly concerned about that one. I think they are probably hoping, just going back to whether he's going to write a book or not, that Harry and Meghan's Californian dream is going to work out. Because if it doesn't, the only thing they've got to fall back on is selling more royal secrets. And I think that is a genuine concern.
I think as well, he's not going to let this one go, regardless of what the outcome of this is when we get the decision from the Court of Appeal. So whether or not it's a legal crusade, there'll still be a moral crusade for Prince Harry. He said he wants to get under the bonnet and fix things, that although this has been exhausting and overwhelming, I don't think he's going to let it go. So he's going to have to find some kind of outlet for this, whether that's another book, whether it's a podcast, whether he tries to help others. I don't know, but I can't see him letting this one go.
I'm going to be a bit contrary here, but 5 years ago, Megxit happened, he's been over many, many times. He comes over for charity events. He comes over for the Invictus Games event at St Paul's. He comes in and out for the odd royal event, like funerals and coronations and stuff like that. Is he just going a bit over the top here? I mean, why is he obsessed with the security when for the last 5 years, as far as I'm aware, and I do trust the police, and I think there are police officers and there are people in the Home Office and Royal Household that are thinking, why doesn't he trust the fact that we can keep him safe under these current conditions? I mean, in the past 5 years, nothing bad's happened.
So the court has heard that when Prince Harry comes back to the UK, he has to give the Home Office 30 days notice for them to assess what kind of level of police protection he should be entitled to on that particular visit. In other words, a case-by-case basis. From Harry's point of view, the security he's provided with on these occasions has not been adequate and has not been up to the standards that he would have had as a working member of the royal family. So, for example, there was an incident following a Well Child family charity event a couple of years ago where he did not have a police escort, and he alleges...
I hate interrupting people, but that is the only incident that he's come up with, and that was something that the journalists turned up at, where it was photographers, and he appears to want armed police officers to deter journalists and photographers. That's the only case that we've heard.
Well, it goes back to his paranoia, doesn't it? Right. About what I think it all goes back to what happens with his mother in the tunnel in Paris in 1997. And clearly that would have been incredibly traumatic for him. But I just think it's not within his character to let these kind of things go. And I think, as you were saying, Sarah, I think that perhaps could be the issue.